And we are live. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. It's certainly afternoon here in Chicago. It is 4:30 p.m. Central Time. It's office hours here in the Academy. Hey, Andrew, how are things?
And not too bad. We kicked off Q3 of courses this week, so it's getting back into the swing of things. I feel like the first half of this week has been a long one, but in a good way.
Yeah, being back in the saddle.
Exactly. I appreciate you and I getting back into training, and the kids are going to be going back to school, going to get a more consistent schedule here going forward. That's the excitement going on in my life right now. How are you doing?
Yeah, it's all good. Our kid had his pre-day yesterday, introduction to a new school because they're shifting buildings,
Okay.
locations. So he was quite nervous about that, but it turned out real good in the end. And I believe next Monday is full swing again. So, all right,
Excellent. Everybody getting back to it.
yeah.
Well,
But that's not over here.
no, I was going to say the good thing is the community never stopped.
Never stopped. They don't.
And neither has Microsoft. I've got a few things that I wanted to share today that I came across.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of funny as I'm sitting here reviewing the links that I had for this evening. You and I are always talking about we're focused on Windows, and turns out half the links I have today are about managing Mac OS. But I thought they were absolutely worthwhile. So. First one I'll share here, though, starts out a little bit broad. I don't think we covered these over the last 2 weeks because the service release, the July service release for Intune was rolling out, but we hadn't seen the notes yet. Well, the release notes are out, and there have been a few things that have come out of that. So we have talked a little bit about some Graph API endpoints that have been changing recently. So just a note here, the first part of these release notes that some APIs and permissions are changing here. If you're using the device management scripts APIs, they'll use some additional permissions now. So if that is important to you, if you're making calls to those endpoints, please check that out. Some new endpoint privilege management improvements that came out with the July service release. New Apple settings catalog, which I'm not too surprised about. We're going to start seeing Mac OS and iOS and iPad OS 26 rolling out here. Probably, I would guess, sometime next month. Platform support for device cleanup rules that was released. I think we did note that. Basically, you're able to, in Intune, up until last month, when you configured device cleanup rules, the automated cleanup rules, pretty much that just worked across the board. But now you can filter on when you want each type of platform to be cleaned up. So if we want Windows for 90 days, for example, or we can manage Mac OS specifically. Now, here's the big one, though. Mac OS lapse solution or local administrator password solution was released, which, yay, awesome. But hopefully this will be sort of a version 1. I'm very happy to see that there is a solution being rolled out, but there are a couple of caveats with it that I've seen others run into so far. And that's prevented me from diving headfirst into trying it out. But we have Jory's blog post here that talks about how to configure Mac OS lapse with Intune. It's a great blog post, goes through all of the policies and everything that you have that you want to assign to your devices. But this big warning here really has been putting some folks off. Basically, the macOS lapse configuration only fires off when you are enrolling your device for the first time. So if you want lapse for macOS, you will actually have to re-enroll the device as it stands now. I have not come across any official response or anything from Microsoft on that. If we should expect it should change, but I do know there was a fairly busy Reddit thread on the Intune subreddit with quite a few people that have been putting in support tickets, trying to work through this and a couple of other things that really just needed some clarified documentation, I think. So if you want to try it out, absolutely try it out, kick the tires on that. Just note that when you do assign these policies, you will actually have to go through an enrollment for them to work.
I think I can delegate that task for testing to, it's in fact that 50% of the office hours regulars are having a Mac OS or at least a Macintosh device they can test on, and it's not me. So
You saying you know a guy?
I know a guy.
All right. I think that is fair. You haven't given me any homework for a while, and in the sake of, or the theme of everyone going back to school, Andrew has some homework now.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah.
And I'm writing it down right here. I even underlined it.
There you go.
All right. Perfect. But nevertheless, I am excited that this is being released. This is absolutely better than nothing. So I'm going to give that a shot. Microsoft also wrote up a blog post on some of the things that are going to be changing with macOS 26 and iOS and iPadOS 26. And one of those things is it's going to be a little bit easier to migrate existing devices over to Intune. Now, we talked a little bit about earlier this summer when Apple had their conference with this new version of all of their operating systems. It's also going to be easier to onboard Apple IDs for your organization. They had quite a few different changes in terms of managing macOS with systems like Intune. So again, I'm really excited for this. There are enough major changes, like with lapse and what they're talking about here in the blog post and what they were referring to earlier in the summer, that I have sort of stepped back from too much testing right now, because I think there are going to be some pretty major changes that, thankfully, at least by the looks of it, will make our lives easier for onboarding Macs into the Intune environment. So very excited about that. And last thing that I had on the Mac OS front is I did come across an announcement from Patch My PC. They're going to be presenting a webinar here on August 27th at 10 a.m. Central, starting at 10 a.m. Central. And one of the primary points of the agenda is talking through their new Mac OS support. So they've been talking for quite a while. I think it's been in private preview and maybe now even in public preview. Mac OS applications using Patch My PC. So really excited to see what they have to talk about here. I know in the webinar they're also talking about some of the other additional features that they've released recently, some enhancements to their advanced insights reportings, and covering PS-ADT 4.1 release as well. So I'll be signing up for this to make sure to check this out. Very exciting. And then I think I mentioned this when I came across it previously, but I happened to run across it again. I think Meryl might have posted about it, but Meryl Fernando from over at Microsoft runs an awesome list here on GitHub. If you haven't seen the awesome lists, they're very cool. They have a lot of useful links that are pointing towards resources on a specific technology. In this case, Meryl has an awesome list for Entra resources. So if we scroll down to see what this looks like, you can find a bunch of different tools, Portal and Microsoft official URLs, learning links, social links. I think if we scroll down here, there are some useful YouTube channels, podcasts, Blue Sky follows that are really focused around Entra. And I think when we're managing an Intune, whether it is Mac OS or Windows or whatever, it's pretty difficult for us to avoid using Entra. So it's important for us to have a pretty good grasp on what's going on there and what's changing. A lot of those things often affect our systems management side of things. So super great resource here. I wanted to make sure to share this again. So that's the stuff that I came across for this week.
All right. Brilliant. I have it's a kind of a sidekick, but I cannot not show it. So let me share my screen here. I stumbled across a post from Industrial Light and Magic.
Ooh.
And apparently we'll have to go to the movie theater in 2027 because they are releasing A New Hope in the theaters. So that'll be pretty cool to celebrate year number 50 of that saga.
Very exciting.
Very exciting. Another news that is also totally unrelated, but it just made a good memory, or lots of good memories. Apparently the good old Commodore teams has aligning their resources and got all their trademarks back under one roof. So it'll be interesting to see what those folks can put together. But that's pretty much where I started my IT career, with a Commodore 64 and a tape drive with it, and that was fun. So totally unrelated, but still very, very fun.
That's awesome. I always get so excited when I hear folks talk about it. I think as you've said in our intros this week, I think I missed that by about 10 years or so, but it feels like I was so close to it, but missed those good old days of the Commodore 64.
Yeah, that was I was 10, so that was 83.
All right.
That was a while ago. But back on normal tracks, Rue Campbell released a full hour of advanced conditional access. So if you're interested in that one, I highly recommend taking a look at that. So that was cool. And it was quite timely that you mentioned device cleanup rules earlier, because Peter over in Europe, Mr. van der Woude, he just published a blog post on how to use the device cleanup rules in Microsoft Intune.
Very nice.
And finally, I stumbled across a post from Rudy over at Patch My PC. The post was released July 29, but I cannot remember if we shared it last week or not. I don't think we did.
I don't think so.
Anyhow, it's a post around how you can get your Intune app content extracted to your device which happened every now and then. You forgot to save away your source directive for your applications. So, anywho, those were the news that I had, and that means it is time for questions.
Excellent. And we have a few. Looks like the chat is quite chatty so far, which is awesome. So exciting. So a couple familiar faces in here. I want to make sure we see, or familiar names, I should say. I want to make sure we say hello. So hello to everybody joining. Now, first question here. Matthew says he was finally able to get application installs working with OSD. It was a cert issue with the IIS default website HTTPS binding. Made a post in the community in more detail. Also implemented a pretty good copy of OSD log script for ConfigMgr from Johan, and he worked like a charm. So not a question, but a thank you, and that's awesome. Positive feedback. I know, Matthew, you were working on that the last couple of weeks, so happy to hear you got that solved.
Yeah, that's what Richard Hicks used to say, or usually says still. It's always DNS, and when it's not, it's certificates. So.
Yep. Spot on. Usually is.
Yeah. And here's that script, by the way, also a link to it.
Awesome. Thank you. So Matt is asking, no, I asked you about these, excuse me. I know I asked you about this during the week, but I know you always recommend Samsung for NVMe. And this time you said Western Digital. Wondering if you recommend Western Digital more than Samsung.
So Samsung disks used to be my go-to drives for a close decade.
Yeah.
But when their 4 terabytes were released, we bought a good couple of them, 7 or 8. They have been causing us nothing but pain. So we have ripped out every single one of them and replaced with others. What happens is they lose communication with the controller during heavy load. And we run heavy load on those hard drives. So I've tested a couple of others. I tested a Dell branded Micron, been working perfectly fine. Bought a couple of the Western Digital red ones that are really for NAS devices, but they're really good write endurance. And we have a couple of the WD Black, all of those 4 terabytes across the board. Haven't had a single issue since across multiple hardware, multiple servers, workstations. So I used to really, really appreciate the Samsung drives, but the big ones, not good.
Yeah. And I'll just add to that. I mean, when you're saying we, Johan does mean we. I've had the exact same problems with the exact same drives in a completely different location and completely different devices. And I've made the same switch over here and no issues since.
Yeah, Versatex, exact same problem, also different hardware.
Yeah. So it's kind of a bummer. I mean, not just the fact that it was a pain for us to troubleshoot, but as you said, both of us have used Samsung for a very long time, and they've been rock solid.
Yep, but yeah, indeed bummer.
All right. So Clive's got a question here. SysPrep and capture via MDT and SysPrep starts, and eventually the wizard.hta goes blank in 24H2.
Yeah, we have been tracking a couple of SysPrep things over the years for 24H2. There are a couple of ways to make it pretty much foolproof to work with. Here. I put together some of those guidelines in a post just before Christmas last year, and these are still valid. Long story short, make sure to block internet access on that device. That's a good start. That will mitigate a good chunk of the issues. Secondly, there is a SysPrep and capture only sequence in MDT. That's not the best one, to put it mildly. I recommend run the build and capture sequence instead. If you absolutely want to have a break in between for whatever reason, add in the suspend action. It works just fine. But that capture only sequence, I've seen issues with it over the years. So I basically gave up on it. It's like, all right, fine, just do a build and capture. And blocking access to the VMs, super simple. Open up your favorite PowerShell editor, and well, maybe not that script, but let's see what I have here. You simply run a PowerShell command on your host, and you specify the default gateway for that VM, and it will no longer have access to it. And that's just a quick way to block internet access to a VM. You can now, of course, do it from within the operating system as well, but I was lazy and this was just a very quick way to work on it. Now, this obviously works only if your deployment server is on the same subnet as the client, because if you nuke the default gateway in the middle of it when you're starting up the deployment, nothing will work. But those are the issues I've seen with SysPrep on 24H2 and how to mitigate them. I have not tried the latest 2 months updates, the June and July. What I know they contain is a good chunk of additional updated applications. So it may very well be that there is something with them that still is causing headache. But that's everything I've seen on 24H2. Another option, you can of course disable the wizard completely, an entity, that there is an option to do that if that one is causing the problem. It's a bootstrap setting, bootstrap inner setting.
All right. Good stuff. Matthew is asking, presumably ConfigMgr here, what is the best way to update an application install when a new version is released?
It's one of those lovely, it depends. Depends on the installer. It depends on how you deal with application updates. Most installers are, I would have to say most. Installers are often capable of detecting an older version of the same app and automatically just remove it. So that's one way of doing it. In some scenarios, you have to do a supersedence rule, either in Intune or ConfigMgr, where you're basically saying that this version is supposed to replace this version, and by the way, while you're at it, uninstall the old version first. And that relationship you can configure in ConfigMgr and Intune. So it depends a little bit and on the application.
All right. Matthew also had a comment here. I had a Commodore Amiga 500.
Same here.
Awesome.
Those were nice. Those were nice.
You have any of your older hardware in storage or like a little museum back there?
No, do not. And they were all sold when I switched over to the PC track early high school time. So
had to invest in a new PC.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. All right. So Amir is, let's see, after clicking reseal from the Autopilot pre-provisioning success screen, the device shuts down as expected. But when powered on, it shows the default user 0 login screen instead of out-of-box experience. If we switch users and log in locally, out-of-box experience resumes and prompts for user login. This only happens occasionally and defeats the goal of a fully hands-off provisioning experience. The device had internet and the Autopilot profile was assigned. Any idea why it sometimes skips OOBE and lands at default user 0 after the reseal and power on? How can we prevent or detect this before shipping the device?
That one I don't know. I've seen it, stumble across it, but I don't have any more info than that.
Mm-mm.
I mean, you're not alone. A quick search shows other having the same problem as well, but I don't have any more details on why that is.
Yeah, I haven't played around with pre-provisioning too much, but it's definitely come up more and more recently, it seems. I may have talked about this after our prior to MMS outings back in May for me and last October for both of us. It feels like those are coming up during some of our one-on-one conversations that quite a few folks are using pre-provisioning.
Yeah, I stumbled across an older post from, I can go ahead and share that one, from Paul with Stanley.
I knew it because I just came across it too.
He had the same problem. Apparently, this was for Windows 10, obviously in the time, but there are some reasoning around it. In his particular case, it was a security hardening that caused the problem. Things like auto log on, etc., that causing troubles.
Mm-hmm.
So if you guys are using that, try to simply not do it and see if it makes any changes. So maybe that.
It's interesting, and that actually, Paul actually links to an official Microsoft doc that shows several policies that can conflict with Autopilot. I'll have to bookmark that one.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Yeah, if you actually can you scroll down just a little bit further?
Yes, I can.
There we go. Some of the actual specific policies. Pretty interesting. I don't recall seeing this document before.
No, that was a good find.
Yeah.
That was a good find.
Thank you, past Paul.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe that. Maybe that.
All right. Matt had a follow-up question on the NVMe drives. Just 4 terabyte are an issue for the Samsung, or even the 2 terabytes?
I have only had the problem with the 4 terabyte ones.
Same.
I still have a couple of 2 terabytes still in business for years without any problem.
Mm-hmm. All right. Barry's joining us over on YouTube asking about ConfigMgr and SQL compatibility levels. So he's got a CAS plus primaries, mixed SQL 16, 19, and now 22. All were 2016 level, but on a recent support call, one of them was moved to 2012. Now, do we want to standardize on 2012 or 2016? Also, in about 6 months, we should be on all SQL 22 across the CAS and all the primaries. So at that point, do we move all to the 2019 level, 2022 level, or stay on an older compatibility level?
Well, no matter what level you pick, I certainly recommend to have them all on the same level across the board. And you have my heartfelt pain for needing a CAS. So sorry, but I know this environment is a large one, so it is required, but it does add some pain to the mix of things. Level 150 is the highest one that ConfigMgr supports.
Yep. So we ran into this when I was releasing Server 2025 hydration kit.
Yeah.
The 160 worked, but 150, to your point, is the only one, the highest supported.
Yeah. So if you do use SQL Server 2022, we recommend pre-creating that database, or at least alter that level down to 150, because it's so if you go to the supported SQL Server versions. So this is the version you want to be at. See if there is another. Yeah. So this is what Microsoft put together. depending on what you're running. Hoping that will help.
All right. Matthew's asking, how do I clear old versions of software out of my distribution points after I have updated the applications with new versions?
Well, either just delete the app. That's one way. If you want to keep the app for a while and just get rid of, save some storage for it, you can just remove the content. So if I go to one of my site servers here, this one, and go over to my apps or packages for that matter, but this one is distributed. But if I go properties on that application, I don't have to delete the app. You can always go to content location, so you can just go ahead and remove them from here. And that will save it the disk space on the DPs. It will still be on available in the source. That doesn't change. You will still see it in the console. And if there are any deployment history and whatnot, you still have it for that application. But you don't, you can claim some disk space back on the distribution points. And you can do that in PowerShell as well.
Awesome. All right. Ken's asking if we saw the new group source of authority feature. That's pretty neat. I did see an announcement about it. Basically, as I understand it, that allows you to take your group management in on-prem Active Directory and allow Entra ID to manage those groups from the cloud, basically. Very cool. Have not gotten to test it or play around with it or anything yet. But finding the documentation, if you want to switch over to my screen real quick, Johan, because I thought this was funny. One of the official recommendations on cleaning up groups is to use the scream test. Fantastic way to get things done. I must say, your change management team may not be so happy about it, or your users, but I don't think I ever expected to see that in official documentation.
That is brilliant. That is absolutely brilliant.
This is one of those areas, though. I mean, it even explains it in the paragraph. It's difficult or near impossible to figure out what a group actually does in Active Directory, right? I mean, if you're running Active Directory, but your users have created a group to do something in an application, you have no idea what it's doing. There's really one way to find out outside of just asking and hoping you get the answer.
Scream test. All right. Yeah, that's a solid strategy right there.
Yeah. But this is very cool. This is also getting added to my list to see if I can configure this in my lab. Yeah, very cool. Thanks for pointing that out, Ken. All right. Yeah, I see Clive's comment here. If people don't want to wait for applications to come down, working at a university, users saying things like, what, this takes 20 minutes? This is unacceptable. I hear you.
Yeah.
I see Mr. Terrell joining us here as well. Might not appreciate the screen test so much. Yes, it's not my preferred method of making changes. That's for sure. Yeah, 20 minutes is fast. I agree.
Indeed.
All right. Amir has a follow-up here, too, on the pre-provisioning question. Good point, but wouldn't the policies cause cause it to fail on all devices.
In theory, it could also be just a timing issue that, depending on how quickly policies are coming down or not coming down.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to remember that the Intune is a shared service. There is always these slightly different behaviors on what day of the week it is, what time of day it is, how busy that Azure region is, and where you end up in that queue when you're doing something. I know they're working hard on trying to get that experience to be super consistent, but it is still a really large shared service.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to get that like exact same behavior.
Yep. Well said. I love Andre's comment here too. 12 years old, Commodore 64, a modem, and free AOL access. Phone bill came in at over $250. Parents were not happy.
That may have happened.
I didn't have it with Commodore 64, but yes, I've been there as well.
Yeah, I ran a BBS for a while, focusing on 3D graphics. I called it Starlight. It was just local in Sweden at the time, but I had 3 dedicated phone lines in for it.
Wow.
Parents also not entirely pleased with that setup.
I
Turned
love
out
it,
okay,
though.
though.
Yeah. If you know what, if our parents hadn't, allowed that to happen and continue to support us, then we wouldn't be where we're at today. If we didn't get to keep making those mistakes.
Yep.
All right. Manny's got a question around Autopilot device preparation and group tags. When it comes to dynamically naming devices in your tenant based on group tags, does Microsoft intend to change this?
I haven't heard a thing about any updates to naming or device naming conventions.
Mm-hmm.
It is possible to, if you're using regular, the old school user driven, to provide a device name as part of that process, but I haven't heard of any updates for this. So, sorry.
And Barry had a follow-up as well around compatibility level. So level 150 after all are moved. Any reason to go for older compatibility levels?
Not that I can think of, not if all your servers are up on that level. That shouldn't be a reason to go to something older.
Yep.
At least I cannot come up with one at the moment.
All right. And Mark is having an issue with enabling TLS 1.3 via settings catalog. It always seems to show as error 65,000. Any ideas for it?
No, I haven't done that configuration. Not something I've seen. Sorry about that too.
Yeah. No, the error code definitely, but not on that specific one. Rudy did a whole blog post earlier this year around that error code. I can share that to see if this will help.
All right.
It is around the 80. Yeah.
Yep.
So maybe that will help, Mark. We'll get that shared in the links this evening. All right. Yeah. In terms of speed, especially, we talk about often. in education spaces where you need to reimage a lab, reimage a classroom, or something like that. Speed is important, and so Clive mentioned in here that's why imaging will always destroy Autopilot. At least in the current state, I can think of several scenarios of yes, where it absolutely would. Any comments on that, Johan?
Nope.
You like imaging?
I like imaging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. We can't control how apps install and in what order during Autopilot. If you want to speed up the enrollment status page, simply add your apps post setup. Yep.
I mean, there are a couple of workarounds. Stumbled across customers using, for example, using dependencies on application. I wouldn't recommend it, but it does allow you to control the order a little bit, even in Autopilot. We have a couple of customers that are still using sequences through Autopilot, so provisioning sequences. I even stumbled across one customer just the other week here that they use sequences in Autopilot to update drivers. I'm like, okay, that was creative. Didn't think of that, but they did it. But you can run a config manager sequence from a cloud management gateway during Autopilot, and whatever that sequence do will happen. And then you really have the control of the order. Fun part is often quicker to get the apps installed that way than to have Intune apps. So it's doable. That there are workarounds, but it would have been nice to have from the start, from the get-go, a better integration of apps in the Autopilot overall experience.
All right. Matthew's asking, in the DP properties, can you explain the difference between group relationships and boundary groups? Think I understand, but just want to make sure.
I can try. Go over to my screen here, and I think I've head over to my main lab. I have a couple of more boundaries in that one. Dum, 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 dum. So the question was?
The question was, in the DP properties, can you explain the difference between group relationships and boundary groups?
All right, so distribution point, pick one of my DC properties. Yeah, so grouping of distribution points is just to simplify distribution of content as a start. And those are the same group that you will see here. This have nothing to do with boundaries at this point. It's just to simplify distribution. Because if I go to, say, a package that I have, now these are already distributed, but when I do distribute content here, I will have the option of picking either an individual distribution point or a group. And if I pick a group, it will distribute all of those 3 DPs at the same time. And if I later add a server to that group, it will be distributed to that server also. If I remove a server, it won't remove it, but if I add one, it will add it. So it's all about simplifying distribution points or management of distribution of content. The boundary groups, they are all about helping the client finding stuff. So for example, in my Seattle location, it's just a small network, single subnet. Those machines is only going to use one DP and one site server. So the boundary groups tells the client where to go find MPs, DPs, state migration points, or software update points. Whereas machines in Chicago, they are allowed to use more resources, more boundaries, larger IP ranges. This IP range here is in fact 12 different subnets, just a larger range covering those 12 subnets. And then I have the references here. Relationships is typically when you want to allow them to fall back. Like if everything in Chicago is gone, will I be allowed to go and pick those roles or systems elsewhere? So I hope that explained it a little bit. So boundary groups is to find the resources. Distribution point groups is for simplifying content management.
Mm-hmm. Great explanation.
Thank you, sir.
It's like you've talked about that before.
Boundaries I've mentioned once or twice before, yes.
Definitely. Particularly appreciate your advice on keeping boundaries, not having too many if you don't need them. But same thing with DPs.
Yep.
All right. Clive says, I'm getting a notification in ConfigMgr console about a critical fix. What's this all about? I think you were talking about this Monday.
Yes, most likely it's the SQL injection code issue. If I go back to this server again up here, you really want to be on this specific version or higher. 2503 with a hotfix, so that you are on this specific version or higher on ConfigMgr. Because there is a pretty ugly bug that has been around for a while, but it was just announced now in July. Let's see if I can find that link. I know we sent it out at some point.
The actual CVE itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've got it. 47178.
Yeah, that's the one. Let's see if I can borrow that link.
Get here.
That's this one.
Yep.
Yeah. So this one explains the risk for this CVE. And if you go to this link here and scroll down, it will indeed tell you that it's about config manager. And down here, it is version before that version. So get updating.
All right.
And a cool bonus that you get with 2503, in addition to there were some early hiccups with it, but that's the first release that I can remember ever. I didn't get any new features. Bug fixes only.
Mm-hmm.
Hundreds of them. So that is nice.
All right. Tim is wondering if Intune provides a way to query ControlVault drivers. There's a recent announcement from Dell around those.
In a way, yes. But default inventory, no. Well, it's fairly simple to do in Intune if you need to look up just ad hoc details for something that is not part of the normal inventory that you have. Is you can use remediation script for that. I gave a great example in our PowerShell course this morning. But if I go to my Intune tenant, and head over to where I have my scripts. So this is a remediation script that doesn't do remediation. This is my poor man's inventory script. I just wanted to get some network details that Intune simply didn't have. ConfigMgr has it, Intune doesn't. So I put together a little PowerShell script. It's not going to win any awards or anything, but it's just a detection script. And if I open that script, paste it here in VS Code, you can see I'm just gathering information from the device, whatever that may be. But this is information that I didn't have access easily in Intune, that I just want to gather. So whatever PowerShell script you can come up with that then spits that out as a result, that data you can inventory right away. So I have a script, it writes an output. And if I go to the device status now for the script, you will see, of course, every device. Apparently it failed on one of them. But if I add in the output column here, I will have the result of my script right here. So here I have a comma separated file with all the data that I wanted. And I can just export this either from the GUI with generate the CSV file, or I can export it through PowerShell and parse it that way. So basically I had an Excel spreadsheet that contained the result of that script. And those are almost instant. And I mean Intune instant. So it took an hour to get the content, but it's a very quick way to get data back without having to set up log analytics and go through all that stuff. And the maximum output, I believe, is still 2 kilobytes that you can put in the output. So very quick way, and that entire process fully automated. You can have a PowerShell script that upload the script, assign the script, gather the result, parse them, spit out a nice looking report. Poor man's inventory.
Love it.
That works.
Awesome. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Manny had a follow-up on his question from earlier. Did I hear you correctly that you can control the app sequence installation?
Yes, by you having dependencies on the apps, or by using sequences. But then you have to run those sequences from a cloud management gateway. And you have to tell Autopilot to run that sequence. Provision TS something.
All right. Manny had another question here as well. What is the major difference between LEDBAT and bits as it relates to network throttling and idleness of any device?
Well, it's funny. First of all, LEDBAT is typically something that you enable on your distribution points. You can also enable it for software update points for the catalog, but you typically have it on your distribution point. And what it does when you have LEDBAT enabled, this is the magic little checkbox here, it optimizes traffic between the DP and the client. It basically tries to use every single byte there is of the network for ConfigMgr traffic, specifically for ConfigMgr traffic. It locks it down to specific ports between the DP and the client. So if you have a 10 megabit link, it's going to use all of those 10 megabit. So you use what you're paying for. But if there is other traffic that needs to use the same link, it backs off. It backs off pretty instantly. Bits, however, is more of a bandwidth throttling technique where you can define, like on this particular network, I don't want it to go over 2 megabit per second. And I want it to be like that between 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. in the afternoon. Evening, it can go faster. or like when you have an agent that controls that behavior, it can change depending on what network you happen to be on. Or if circumstances change on the network, you can go ahead and automatically change that throttling. So LEDBAT is more of making better use of the WAN as a whole, whereas bits is more intended to control downloads and to be able to easily stop, resume, even cancel, of course, downloads. But it's quite good at that. And it's not just ConfigMgr using bits. There are tons of applications that are using bits that most folks maybe don't think about. They notice it when Chrome kicks in an update and suddenly you have 30 terabytes of Chrome updates coming down over your network links. But yeah, that's another story.
All right. And Clive's asking, in their co-managed environment, why am I seeing devices co-managed and the same device says managed by MDE? What is causing the duplicates?
A truly co-managed device should not be seen twice, but
I'm trying to think of, I'm trying to think of the same. I don't see duplicates generally as too big of a problem on the Intune side. Duplicates in Entra, yes, I see those. It could be, depending on how long it's been, it could be a timing issue. Managed by MDE usually will be the device will show up in Intune, but you have the MDE policies applied to it from MDE instead of Intune. And then maybe you eventually see those two objects merge. Timing would be my first question, but my guess would also be that you've probably waited a while.
yeah, I don't have any better info on that one.
No, I'm not coming up with anything either. Sorry about that.
So one tip about it being the upload option in Config Manager could generate those duplicate objects, but not something I've seen either. There was apparently a setting in MDE itself how to handle duplicate records. See if I can find some more info on that. Yeah, this post might be giving some clues. It's a Reddit thread that was going on. And I wonder if it was... No, this was not MD. No, skip that one. That was not MD related. Never mind. That was a bit too quick there.
All right. Well, we'll have to keep our eyes peeled for that.
Yeah. We are up on time. That was one last question from Annie regarding what's the purpose of CM Pivot. the idea is to be able to query client information in real time, and it's fantastically good at that as well. If you remind me, I'll be happy to show a demo of it next Wednesday when we are up here again. But we are up on time for today. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Andrew, for being here with me, and we hope to see you again next Wednesday. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Johan. Thanks, everybody.